morning sun hadn't yet burned through the marine layer when Chief Petty Officer Raven Thorne stepped off the transport at Camp Pendleton's East Gate. No fanfare, no announcement, just another body in woodland marpat carrying a standard-issue sea bag that had seen better decades. The gate guard barely glanced at her orders before waving her through. Another support role, another observer, another nobody. But Raven Thorne had never been nobody. 2 weeks earlier, she'd been fast roping from a Black Hawk into a compound outside Kandahar, leading a direct action raid that would never make headlines. 47 missions with SEAL Team 3, 12 confirmed kills, 3 Bronze Stars, 1 with Valor, a Purple Heart she never talked about, and a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu earned not in some strip mall dojo, but in the kill houses of Dam Neck, where technique meant survival and mistakes meant flag-draped coffins. Now she walked these California roads with deliberate anonymity. Orders from SOCOM had been specific assess Marine Corps integration, readiness for joint special operations. Real assessment. Not the kind that got filed in triplicate and forgotten. The kind that revealed whether these Marines could actually operate alongside Navy's finest without getting everyone killed. She'd volunteered for this, asked for it actually. After 18 months of continuous deployment, her squadron commander had suggested she needed a break. Administrative duty, he'd called it with that knowing look that said he understood she'd rather eat glass than sit behind a desk. This was the compromise, still serving, still evaluating, still mattering, just quieter. The admin building smelled like every military admin building since 1942. Pine Sol burnt coffee and the particular staleness that came from too many bodies processing too much paperwork in too little space. The personnel clerk, a lance corporal who couldn't have been 20, looked up from his computer with the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. Name Thorne, CPO Thorne. He squinted at his screen, hunting pecking through entries. Navy, correct. Says here you're observation and support. That's right. He shrugged, stamped something, handed her a folder. Barracks 3-second deck. Chows at 600, 1200, and 1730. PT formations at 0545 if you're participating. She wasn't, not officially, but she'd be watching. The barracks room was exactly what she'd expected. 2 racks, 2 wall lockers, 1 window facing the parade deck. Her roommate's gear was already squared away. Marines did that well, at least. The name tape read, Hayes. Raven stowed her gear methodically, each item in its designated place. Her personal notebook, black unmarked, went into the left cargo pocket of her utilities. The gloves, tactical black, unbranded, stayed in her assault pack. She'd need those later. At 500, she was already positioned at the edge of the PT field, coffee in hand, watching Marines filter onto the deck. They moved in clusters, loud and loose, the kind of pre-dawn bravado that helped them forget they'd rather be sleeping. She cataloged faces, noted group dynamics, identified the alphas by how others unconsciously oriented around them. That's when she saw him. Corporal Decker Wolf, 6'2", maybe 220, all of it functional muscle. Force Recon tab on his shoulder, combat action ribbon on his service uniform she'd seen earlier in his records. The kind of Marine who'd been good enough to earn respect but not disciplined enough to earn rank beyond corporal in 6 years. He moved with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never met a problem he couldn't solve with aggression. 2 others flanked him. Private First Class Briggs, shorter, built like a fire hydrant laugh, too loud for the joke being told. Lance Corporal Stanton, lean, wiry, the kind who probably ran sub-18-minute 3 miles and never shut up about it. Fresh meat, Briggs said, not quite loud enough to be called out for, it not quite quiet enough to be ignored. Wolf's eyes found her across the field. The assessment was instant and dismissive. Female, Navy, alone, weak. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Squid's lost, he said. The others laughed. Raven sipped her coffee, made a note in her mental file. Watch them begin their circuit training. Wolf was strong but inefficient. Too much upper body in his running form. Briggs had power but no endurance. He'd gas out in extended operations. Stanton had speed but no foundation. First to finish, first to fall when things got real. She'd seen their type in Bud S. Most quit by day 3. The first week passed in deliberate routine. She attended meetings, took notes, observed training evolution, always present, never prominent. The nickname started on day 4. "Hey, new girl," Wolf passing her in the chow hall. "Navy teach you to eat alone? Or is that just your winning personality?" She didn't respond, just continued eating 15 minutes exactly facing the exit. Always facing the exit. By day 6, it had stuck. New girl. They said it like it meant something, like it diminished her, like they knew anything about what she was. Master Gunnery Sergeant Magnus Blackwood noticed her before the others truly did. 58 years old, built like a truck that had been through several wars and kept running on pure spite. His eyes had that particular focus that came from too many deployments, too many decisions, too many letters written to grieving families. He'd been watching her watch them. "You don't act like support staff," he said one evening, catching her reviewing training schedules outside the operations building. "I observe and support master guns. That's my billet." He studied her for a long moment. Something in how she stood. Weight-balanced hands free back to the wall, but not pressed against it. The kind of positioning that looked casual but wasn't. "I trained a lot of observers," he said finally. "None of them took notes in code." She looked at him then. Really looked, evaluating whether he was threat or asset. "It's not code, just shorthand." "Right." He didn't believe her. Didn't need to. "You know what this place is? Joint Integration Assessment Site. It's a pressure cooker, Marines and Navy trying to figure out how to operate together without killing each other. Sometimes literally." He paused. "Some of these boys, they don't adapt well to outside influence. I've noticed. Wolf's got potential. Raw, undisciplined, but potential. His problem is he's never faced a problem he couldn't muscle through. Everyone meets that problem eventually." Blackwood's smile was razor thin. "Yes, they do." The escalation started week 2. Small things. Wolf brushing too close in hallways. Briggs accidentally knocking over her coffee in the chow hall. Stanton making jokes just loud enough to be heard, never quite loud enough to be actionable. "Must be nice," Wolf said one afternoon, catching her alone in the equipment room where she'd been inventorying medical supplies. "Easy duty, no real work, just watching real warriors train." She continued counting bandages. 24, 25, 26. "I'm talking to you, new girl. 27, 28. He stepped closer. She could smell the protein shake on his breath, see the calculation in his eyes. How far could he push? How much could he take? "You know what your problem is." His voice dropped intimate and threatening. "You don't belong here. This is a warrior's place, not for tourists, not for Corporal Wolf." Blackwood's voice cut through like a blade. "Don't you have somewhere to be?" Wolf straightened. "Just welcoming our Navy guest master guns." "Welcome her somewhere else." After Wolf left, Blackwood lingered. "He's testing boundaries." "I noticed. You could file a complaint." "I could. But you won't." She looked at him directly then. "Would you?" Something shifted in his expression. Recognition maybe, or memory. "I knew someone like you once. Buddha's class 234. First integrated class with females. She had that same look, like she was carrying lightning in a bottle just waiting. What happened to her? She became the first female SEAL, And she did it by being twice as good and 3 times as controlled as everyone else. He paused. Restraint isn't weakness, Thorne. Sometimes it's the hardest kind of strength. She said nothing, but something in her stance shifted. A microscopic acknowledgement. Friday, 1740 hours. The equipment corridor was nearly empty. Most of the base had already started their weekend liberty, heading for San Diego or Los Angeles or anywhere that wasn't here. Raven had just finished submitting assessment reports, taking the long way back through the maintenance annex to avoid the crowd near the main entrance. She heard them before she saw them. 3 sets of footsteps, too synchronized to be casual, too deliberate to be coincidental. All alone, new girl. Wolf's voice bounced off the concrete walls. She didn't alter her pace, didn't acknowledge, just adjusted her path slightly toward the stored equipment racks, creating space, options, exit routes. Briggs flanked left, Stanton right, Wolf directly behind. Classic intimidation formation. Amateur hour. I asked you a question. Still nothing. She could feel their frustration building. Good. Angry fighters made mistakes. Maybe she's deaf, Briggs suggested. Or just stupid. Maybe she needs a lesson in respect, Stanton added. That's when Wolf shoved her. Not hard enough to be assault technically, just enough to send her stumbling toward the wall. She caught herself with one palm turned slowly, face completely neutral. Eyes steady, looking through them, not at them. The calm infuriated Wolf more than any response could have. You think you're better than us. Another shove harder this time. Think you're some kind of ghost. Briggs stepped forward, raised his hand in a mocking backhand slap. It connected, snapping her head sideways. Not hard enough to really hurt, just enough to humiliate. She touched her lip. No blood yet. Turned back to face them. That's when Stanton kicked her. It wasn't supposed to be serious. Just a quick shot maybe to the stomach, make her fold, make her fear. But she'd started to turn, and his boot caught her square in the mouth instead. The impact snapped her head back, sent her to one knee. She heard something crack, felt the sharp edge of a broken tooth against her tongue. Blood immediate and metallic. The corridor went silent. Even Wolf looked uncertain for a second. This had crossed a line and they all knew it. She stood slowly, spit blood onto the concrete, looked at each of them in turn. No anger, no fear, just observation. Like she was memorizing something, filing it away. Then she turned and walked away. Not fast, not slow. Just steady, measured steps around the corner and out of sight. Shit, Briggs whispered. She won't say anything, Wolf said, but uncertainty colored his voice. She can't. Makes her look weak. They were wrong, but they wouldn't know that for days. The base medical office was quiet when Raven entered. Petty Officer First Class Rhodes looked up from his paperwork, saw the blood, immediately stood. Jesus, what happened? She pulled out a small notepad, wrote 3 words, dental trauma internal. Rhodes had been a corpsman for 12 years. He'd seen enough injuries to know assault from accident, but he also knew when to ask questions and when to shut up and do his job. Sit. Let me look. The examination was thorough and professional. Split lip already swelling. Hairline fracture on the lower left incisor. Bruising that would be spectacular by morning. This needs to be reported, he said quietly. It will be. Document everything. Photographs, detailed notes. Timestamp everything. You want to name no names. Not yet. Just facts. He understood. This wasn't about immediate justice. This was about something larger. As he worked, she pulled out her phone, sent a single encrypted message to a number that wasn't in any directory. Phase 1 complete. They took the bait. The response was immediate. Proceed as planned. Authorization confirmed. Rhodes finished his documentation, handed her the forms to sign. You know, I've seen a lot of people come through here. Fighters, victims, everything in between. But you're something else. I'm exactly what I need to be. That night in her barracks room, Raven stood before the mirror studying the damage. The swelling was already impressive. By morning, it would be undeniable. Perfect. She pulled out her notebook, wrote a single line in her strange shorthand that wasn't shorthand at all, but a cipher known only to SEAL Team Three's intelligence unit. Subjects identified, aggression confirmed, ready for Phase 2. Master Gunnery Sergeant Blackwood found her at 4:30 the next morning, already in the gym, working through a complex series of movements on the heavy bag. Not boxing, something more fluid, more lethal. Every strike targeted a specific point: throat, solar plexus, kidney, knee. The combinations were devastating in their precision. Krav Maga, he asked. Among other things. He watched her for a moment. Even with her face swollen, split lips still raw, she moved like water over stone. Smooth, inevitable, devastating. I pulled your file, he said quietly. She didn't stop moving. Strike, pivot, strike. It's interesting reading. What's there? And what isn't? Strike. Block. Takedown simulation against an invisible opponent. Lot of redacted sections for support staff. She finally stopped, turned to face him. Morning PT would start in an hour. The gym would fill with Marines. But for now, it was just them and the truth hanging in the air like cordite. What do you want to know, Master Guns? I want to know why a decorated Navy SEAL is playing punching bag for my Marines. She studied him for a long moment, calculating, then pulled up her left sleeve, revealing a tattoo he recognized immediately. The Budweiser, the trident, the mark of naval special warfare. But there was more. Underneath in small script, a designation TU3, Team 3, and below that, something that made his breath catch, Dev Gru Qual. Jesus Christ, he whispered. You're not just a SEAL, I'm exactly what my orders say I am, an observer. She rolled down her sleeve. But sometimes, Master Guns, to properly observe, you need to see what people do when they think no one's watching, when they think they have all the power. Wolf, Briggs, Stanton, and whoever's enabling them. This base has a problem, not just attitude, something systemic. Command wants to know how deep it goes before we put SEALs and Marines together downrange. So you're using yourself as bait. I'm conducting an assessment. By letting them assault you, by seeing who does what when they think there are no consequences. She resumed her position at the bag. Phase 2 starts Monday. What's Phase 2? For the first time since she'd arrived, Raventhorn smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Education. Word of the incident spread through unofficial channels. By Sunday night, 3 different versions were circulating. She'd cried. She'd threatened legal action. She was being transferred out Monday morning. All wrong, but Wolf was happy to let them spread. He held court in the enlisted club, retelling the story with embellishments that grew with each beer. Should have seen her face, he laughed. Reality hit hard. This ain't some Navy desk job. This is the Marines. Briggs and Stanton laughed along, but something had shifted. Stanton kept touching his foot, remembering the unexpected solidity of impact. Briggs had noticed the complete lack of fear in her eyes. They'd both seen something that didn't match the story Wolf was selling, but they kept quiet. Group loyalty mattered more than doubt. What none of them knew was that everything was being documented. The security footage that Wolf thought was broken, it wasn't. The conversations he thought were private, they weren't. The personnel files he thought were sealed, they'd been flagged for review. Colonel Garrett Frost, commanding officer of 1st Marine Special Operations Battalion, read the preliminary report Sunday night in his secured office. 20 pages of observations, incidence patterns. All leading to one conclusion: the integration program had a cancer that needed to be cut out. You're sure about this? he asked the figure sitting across from him. Watch the footage yourself, came the reply. Then tell me what you think should happen next. Frost watched. The initial pushing, the slap, the kick that split her lip and cracked her tooth, and through it all, the complete control of someone who could have ended it in seconds but chose not to. Christ, he muttered. She could have killed them. Easily, but that wasn't the mission. And tomorrow she teaches them what they should have already known, which is that silence isn't submission, it's preparation. Monday morning came gray and cold marine layer, thick enough to taste. Formation was at 0700 outside the physical training complex. The schedule had been updated overnight. New training block, new instructor of record. Wolf arrived late, swagger intact, still riding high on his weekend storytelling. He glanced at the updated roster board and froze. Instructor of record CPO Thorn R. The hell, Briggs muttered. Before anyone could respond, the door opened. Raven stepped out. Black tactical pants, navy PT shirt, no rank insignia visible, gloves on, face still showing the damage, swollen lip-bruised jaw, the broken tooth visible when she spoke. Morning Marines? The formation straightened reflexively. Something in her voice, or something that hadn't been there before, or maybe something that had always been there, just hidden. 3-station assessment today, baseline evaluation. We'll be measuring combat readiness metrics for joint operation compatibility. Wolf started to smirk, but Blackwood's voice cut through from the side of the formation. You heard the instructor. Move. The stations were already set up. Complex, technical, demanding. Nothing like the usual PT routine. This was special operations assessment level. Groups are pre-assigned, Raven announced, reading from her clipboard with the same neutral tone she'd maintained for 2 weeks. Station 1, speed and load. Wolf Briggs. They moved forward, confidence intact. How hard could it be? Very hard, as it turned out. The station required carrying 2 40-pound sandbags through an obstacle course, loading them into elevated platforms, then returning. Time limit 30 seconds. Special operations standard. Wolf grabbed the first bag like it owed him money, muscled it up, stumbled on the first obstacle. His form was all power, no technique. He made it barely at 43 seconds. Briggs was worse. 48 seconds, nearly dropped the bag twice. Failed standard, Raven announced, marking her clipboard. Reset. This is BS, Wolf muttered. No one told us the standards. The standards have always been the same. Raven cut him off. You just never had to meet them. Station 2 was partner resistance drills. Technical, precise, required understanding of leverage and body mechanics. Wolf and Stanton paired up, tried to muscle through it. Failed again. Uncontrolled, Raven noted. Lack of foundational technique. By Station 3, close quarters control, the entire formation could feel the shift. This wasn't normal PT. This was evaluation. Real evaluation. And they were failing. These are impossible standards, Wolf finally protested loud enough for everyone to hear. No, Raven replied, setting down her clipboard. They're special operations standards. The standards your Marines would need to meet to operate with my people. Your people? He laughed. Navy desk jockeys. She walked onto the mat, centered herself, removed her gloves for the first time since arriving at Pendleton. Her hands told a story. Scarred knuckles, calloused palms, the kind of damage that came from years of real combat, not gym training. Would someone like to demonstrate proper technique? Wolf stepped forward, immediately chest puffed, ready to prove his point. Standard control drill, she said. You attempt to break contact and exit. I maintain control. No strikes, no impact moves, just control. 30 seconds. He nodded, confident. Outweighed her by 80 pounds. Force recon trained. This would be easy. It lasted 3 seconds. The moment he moved, she flowed. Hip positioning, weight redistribution, angular momentum. His own force became her weapon. He hit the mat before his brain registered movement. Not hurt, not injured, just neutralized. Completely, absolutely, professionally. The formation was silent. Again, she said. He got up angry now, rushed her. 2 seconds this time. A different technique. Same result. Again. 4 more times. Each faster. Each more decisive. Each demonstrating a different principle he'd failed to understand at the stations. By the sixth takedown, Wolf wasn't getting up as quickly. Not from injury. She'd been surgically careful about that. But from recognition. This wasn't luck. This wasn't some trick. This was systemic superiority in training and technique. Combat effectiveness, she said, addressing the formation while Wolf caught his breath, isn't about strength. It's about efficiency, control, discipline. Everything the special operations community requires. Everything you were supposed to demonstrate today. She picked up her clipboard, made final notations. Assessment complete for today. Remedial training recommendations will be forwarded to command. Dismissed. The formation dispersed slowly, uncertain. Wolf remained on the mat, staring at nothing. Briggs helped him up. "What the hell just happened?" Stanton whispered. Blackwood appeared beside them, voice pitched for their ears only. "You just got your first real lesson, Marines, and you should pray it's your last." But it wasn't over. Not close. Because in her barracks room, Raven Thorn opened her encrypted laptop and began typing the real report. The one that would go directly to SOCOM. The one that included security footage, witness statements, and a recommendation that would reshape how the military thought about integration training. Phase 1 had identified the problem. Phase 2 had established authority. Phase 3 would deliver justice. And Corporal Decker Wolf had no idea what was coming. The bruises on Raven's face had transformed into a painter's palette of purple and yellow by Tuesday morning, but she wore them like insignia. Each mark told a story that was spreading through Camp Pendleton faster than any official report could travel. The Navy woman who'd been kicked in the face, the same woman who'd put Corporal Wolf on his back 6 times without breaking a sweat. The contradiction was breaking people's brains. Master Gunnery Sergeant Magnus Blackwood found her at 0500 in the Operations Center, reviewing personnel files with the kind of focus that suggested she wasn't reading them for the first time. "Interesting reading," he asked, setting down 2 cups of coffee. She accepted one without looking up. Wolf's fitness reports, 3 different commanders all saying the same thing in different words. Talented but undisciplined. Potential compromised by attitude. And they kept promoting him anyway. Twice, despite 2 Article 15s that got buried in administrative reviews. She pulled up another screen. Briggs has 3 harassment complaints that never made it past initial filing. Stanton was transferred from his last unit after an incident that's curiously unspecified. "You think someone's protecting them?" "I think someone's been protecting this entire culture." She turned the screen toward him. "Look at the transfer patterns. Every time there's a serious complaint, the complainant gets reassigned. Medical reasons, family hardship, career advancement. But they leave, and the problems stay." Blackwood's jaw tightened. "You're talking about command level. I'm talking about systematic failure. The question is how high it goes." Before he could respond, her encrypted phone buzzed. One message: "Package delivered. Authorization confirmed." She stood, gathered her files. "I need to check something. Can you ensure Wolf's squad is at the 0900 Advanced Combat Training?" "They're already rostered." "What kind of training?" "Educational." The Advanced Combat Training Bay was essentially a warehouse converted into a multi-purpose tactical environment. Mats for hand-to-hand, obstacles for movement drills, even a mock urban setup for CQB training. When Wolf arrived with Briggs and Stanton, they found something unexpected. Colonel Garrett Frost stood near the entrance, expression unreadable. Two other figures in unmarked utility stood beside him, faces unfamiliar, but bearing the kind of casual readiness that suggested special operations. A camera crew was setting up in the corner, the kind used for official training documentation. "What's going on, sir?" Wolf asked, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "Training evolution, Corporal. Take your position." Raven entered from the side door, but she wasn't alone. Master Chief Rebecca Stone followed wearing the same unmarked utilities, but with one visible distinction, the seal trident on her chest. 6 feet tall, built like a swimmer, who'd decided to take up powerlifting with eyes that had seen too much and forgotten nothing. "Marines," Stone announced, voice carrying without effort. "I'm Master Chief Stone, Naval Special Warfare Command. I'm here to observe integration readiness evaluation." Wolf's face paled slightly. This was official, documented, career-affecting. "Your instructor today," Stone continued, "is Chief Petty Officer Thorne. Some of you may know her as, what was it, Corporal Wolf, new girl?" The words hung in the air like a challenge. "I'm sure you've all met," Frost added, tone dangerously neutral. "In fact, I've seen some interesting security footage of your previous interactions." Wolf's squad exchanged glances. The corridor, the kick, it had been recorded. "Today's evolution," Raven began, stepping onto the mat, "is advanced close quarters combat, not the basic techniques you learned in boot camp, not the intermediate skills from your units. This is what we use when failure means death, when you're outnumbered, outgunned, and all you have is training and will." She gestured to the mat. "Volunteers." No one moved. "No strange. You seem very eager to engage in close quarters last Friday." Her damaged face turned toward Wolf. "Especially you, Corporal." "That was different." "You're right. That was assault. This is training. Unless you can't tell the difference." Wolf stepped forward, anger overriding judgment. "I can handle training." "Good. Attack me." "What?" "You heard me. Any method, any technique. Show Master Chief Stone and Colonel Frost your combat readiness." Wolf looked at his superiors, then back at Raven. Her stance was neutral, hands at her sides, weight evenly distributed. The bruises on her face seemed darker in the harsh warehouse lights. He attacked. It was actually a decent rush textbook Marine Corps martial arts program. Drive forward, control the center, use superior mass. Against most opponents, it would have worked. Raven wasn't most opponents. She moved like smoke given purpose. His momentum became her weapon. A slight pivot, a hand on his elbow, another behind his neck, and suddenly he was airborne. The mat rushed up to meet him with devastating finality. The impact drove every ounce of air from his lungs. "Lesson 1, she said, breathing steady as morning mist. "Linear attacks are predictable." Again. He got up slower, warier, tried a different approach. Feinted left, went right, attempted a takedown. She sprawled, caught his arm in transition, converted his takedown into an armbar that had him tapping frantically before his elbow separated. "Lesson 2, committed attacks without setup are gifts to your opponent." Again. 6 more times. Each approach different, each result identical. Wolf on the ground, Raven standing, barely having moved from her original position. "Now," she said, as he struggled to his feet for the 8th time, "let me show you what you're actually supposed to know." What followed was a masterclass. She demonstrated techniques drawn from Krav Maga, Brazilian, Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and systems most of them had never seen. But more than techniques, she demonstrated principles: economy of motion, violence of action, controlled aggression. "Briggs," she called. "Stanton, on the mat." They approached reluctantly. 3-on-1 drill. You attack together. I defend. "Ma'am," Briggs started, "that's reality. In combat, fairness is death. Attack." They came at her simultaneously, uncoordinated but determined. The result was beautiful in its brutality. She flowed between them like water through rocks, using their numbers against them. Briggs's punch helped her throw Stanton. Stanton's grab became leverage to control Briggs. In 4 seconds, all three were down. This was, Stone announced to the watching Marines, is the standard. This is what integration means. Not working alongside each other, but becoming force multipliers. Every Marine who operates with naval special warfare needs to be capable of this level of performance. Or, Frost added, they're not just useless, they're dangerous, to themselves and everyone around them. The session continued for 2 hours. Raven taught, demonstrated, corrected. But underneath the instruction was a message: competence comes from humility and true power flows from restraint. When it ended, Wolf could barely stand. Briggs's nose was bleeding from his own knee hitting his face. Stanton had tapped out so many times he'd lost count. Dismissed, Frost announced. Except you three, stay. The warehouse emptied except for Wolf's squad, Ravenstone, Blackwood, and Frost. The camera crew packed up but left one camera running red light, steady as a heartbeat. Gentlemen, Frost began, we have a problem. Would you like to guess what it is? Silence. No, let me help. Last Friday you assaulted a Navy service member. That's problem 1. You did it because you thought she was weak. That's problem 2. You've been doing this to others for years. That's problem 3. Sir, Wolf started. It wasn't. Stop. Stone's voice cut like a blade. I've seen the footage. Multiple angles, audio included. We know exactly what it was. She pulled out a tablet, began scrolling through files. Private Martinez transferred after reporting harassment. Lance Corporal Williams medical discharge after a training accident that looked suspiciously like hazing. Seaman Reeves requested transfer after 2 weeks here. Should I continue? Each name hit like a physical blow. These were buried reports, sealed files, things that should have been invisible. Here's what's going to happen, Frost continued. Option 1, court-martial. Assault conduct, unbecoming conspiracy, dishonorable discharge, federal prison, your choice. What's option 2? Briggs asked, voice barely a whisper. Education. Raven spoke for the first time since the training ended. Real education. She stepped forward and for the first time they saw the full picture. The seal pin she pulled from her pocket. The challenge coins from operations they'd only heard about. The scars on her arms that weren't from training accidents. You kicked me in the face, she said to Stanton. Split my lip. Cracked my tooth. And I let you? Why? The question escaped before he could stop it. Because I needed to know who you really were. What you'd do when you thought there were no consequences. Now I know. She paused. The question is, what are you going to do about it? We're sorry, Wolf began. I don't want your apology. I want change. Real change. Because if you can't change, you're not just unfit for special operations. You're unfit for service. Blackwood stepped forward. Starting tomorrow, you're enrolled in a special program. 12 weeks, intensive retraining, not just combat skills, but ethics, leadership, accountability. You'll train under Chief Thorne and her team. And if we refuse, Stanton asked, then option 1 is back on the table, Frost said simply. Your choice, but choose now. The 3 Marines exchanged glances. The choice was obvious, but the implications were staggering. 12 weeks under the woman they'd assaulted. 12 weeks being broken down and rebuilt. We'll do it, Wolf said finally. Good. Stone turned to leave, then paused. Oh, one more thing. Chief Thorne showed remarkable restraint in that corridor. She could have killed all 3 of you in under 5 seconds. I counted at least 12 opportunities where she could have ended you and claimed self-defense. She didn't. Remember that. After they left, only Raven and Blackwood remained in the warehouse. That was phase 2, he asked. Part of it. The real phase two is what happens next, which is she pulled out her encrypted phone, showed him a message thread. Names, dates, financial records. A web of connections that went much higher than three Marines with attitude problems. Wolf's uncle is Lieutenant Commander Harrison at Marcin. Briggs's father is a retired colonel with connections to the promotion board. Stanton's family has donated significantly to certain political campaigns that influence military funding. Jesus, that's why they've been protected. And that's why this is bigger than just three bullies. This is about systematic corruption, protection of the unworthy at the expense of the capable. What are you going to do? What I was sent here to do, expose it all. That night, Wolf sat in his barracks room staring at his bruised hands. Everything hurt, not just physically, but deeper. The story he'd been telling himself about strength and dominance and natural hierarchy had been shattered in front of everyone. Briggs entered without waiting. You see the email? Wolf nodded. The training schedule had been sent. 0400 wake up. 0430 physical training with Chief Thorne. 0600 classroom instruction on ethics and leadership. 0800 practical application. Every day. For 12 weeks. We could still refuse, Briggs suggested half-heartedly, and go to prison, lose everything. We already lost everything. Everyone knows what happened today. The whole base is talking about how the Navy woman destroyed us. Stanton entered face pale. It's worse. I just came from admin. Our fitness reports are being reviewed. Our promotions are frozen. We're basically starting over. Because of her, Wolf spat. No, a voice from the doorway said. Master Chief Stone stood there, having appeared with the silence that suggested she'd been listening for a while. Because of you. She entered uninvited, closed the door behind her. You want someone to blame, look in a mirror. You had every advantage. Training, support, protection you didn't even know about. And you wasted it on being thugs. We're Marines, Wolf started. You're an embarrassment to Marines. My grandfather was at Iwo Jima. My father was at Quezon. They were Marines. You're just boys who got too comfortable being big fish in a small pond. Well, guess what? The pond just got a lot bigger, and you're not the apex predators anymore. She moved to leave, then turned back. Chief Thorne requested to be your instructor, not as punishment. She believes you can be salvaged, that underneath the attitude and entitlement, there might be actual warriors worth developing. Personally, I think she's wrong, but she's earned the right to try. Don't waste it. After she left, the three sat in silence. Finally, Stanton spoke. She could have destroyed us in that corridor. Yeah, but she didn't. Yeah. Why? Wolf had no answer. Everything he thought he understood about strength and power had been inverted. The quiet woman they'd mocked hadn't been submissive. She'd been calculating. Wednesday morning came like a cold slap. 0400 alarm. 0415 formation in PT gear. 0430 Raven appeared looking like she'd already run 5 miles, which they'd later learned she had. Good morning, Marines. Today we begin your education. Not re-education, because that would imply you were educated in the first place. The insult stung, but they stayed silent. First lesson, humility. You're going to learn it through sweat. We run until someone quits or everyone completes the course. 5 miles. My pace. Her pace was devastating. Not sprint fast, but relentlessly steady. The kind of pace that ground you down, found your weakness, exploited it. Wolf was strong but heavy. By mile 3, he was laboring. Briggs had power but no endurance. He fell back at mile 4. Stanton had speed but no foundation. He was wobbling by the finish. Pathetic, Raven announced as they collapsed at the finish point. Her recovery time 30 seconds. Theirs still counting after 5 minutes. You've been coasting on natural ability without developing actual fitness. Natural ability peaks at 25. Training lasts forever. Shower, breakfast, classroom. 0600, don't be late. The classroom session was worse than the run. She dissected their failures with surgical precision, not just physical, but mental, ethical, professional. You thought being strong made you right. It doesn't. It makes you responsible. Responsible for protecting those who can't protect themselves. Responsible for maintaining standards. Responsible for honor. She pulled up footage from Friday's assault, made them watch it, made them see themselves through objective eyes. Tell me what you see, she demanded. Silence. I'll tell you what I see. Three men attacking one woman. Not warriors, not Marines. Just criminals who happen to wear uniforms. We didn't mean, Briggs started. Intent is irrelevant. Actions are everything. You acted like predators, and predators have no place in my military. The morning continued like that, forcing them to confront not just what they'd done, but who they'd become. The afternoon was worse. Practical application meant sparring with Raven and her team. 3 more SEALs had arrived, all wearing the same neutral utilities, all carrying the same quiet lethality. This is Petty Officer First Class Thompson. Raven introduced a man who looked like he could bench press a truck. He's going to teach you what discipline looks like. Thompson smiled. It wasn't friendly. I heard you boys like 3-on-1. Let's try that. You 3 against me. It was a massacre. Thompson didn't just defeat them, he dismantled them. Every technique they learned, he countered. Every strength they had, he neutralized. And the entire time he talked. Physical power without mental discipline is just violence waiting to happen. Control comes from understanding, not domination. By end of day 1, Wolf could barely walk. Briggs had thrown up twice. Stanton was questioning every life choice that had led him to this moment. Same time tomorrow, Raven announced as they limped away. It gets harder. She wasn't lying. Thursday introduced tactical breathing and stress positions, holding stances that looked simple but became agony after minutes. Learning to control their bodies when every nerve screamed for relief. In combat, Raven explained while they held a wall sit that had passed uncomfortable 10 minutes ago. You don't get to quit when it hurts. The enemy doesn't care about your comfort. Master the pain or it masters you. Friday was water confidence. The pool, full gear, timed exercises that pushed them to the edge of panic. Drowning is psychological before it's physical, she said, watching Wolf struggle with an underwater knot untying drill. Your mind quits before your body. Don't let it. But it wasn't just physical torture. The classroom sessions were gradually reshaping their understanding. Ethics of warfare, laws of armed conflict, the real meaning of service. You swore an oath, Raven said during one session, to support and defend the Constitution, not your ego, not your reputation, the Constitution. That means protecting the rights of others, especially when you don't want to. By week 2, something was shifting. The hostility was fading, replaced by exhausted respect. Raven wasn't just better than them. She was operating on a completely different level, and she was trying to bring them up to it. Why, Wolf finally asked after a particularly brutal session. Why are you doing this? We attacked you. We deserve whatever punishment you want to give. Raven studied him for a long moment. You know what makes special operations actually special? It's not the training or the gear or the missions. It's the mindset, the absolute conviction that failure is not an option. That includes failure of character. But we already failed. You failed a test you didn't know you were taking. Now you know. The question is, what do you do with that knowledge? That evening, Blackwood pulled Raven aside after observing the training. I need to tell you something, he said quietly, about Bud S. Class 234. You mentioned it before. I didn't tell you everything. The first woman to complete SEAL training, I was her instructor, watched her fight through Hell Week with 2 broken ribs and a fractured foot. Never rang the bell, never complained, just kept going. Why are you telling me this? Because she reminds me of you. Same quiet determination. Same refusal to let others define her limits. He paused. Her name was Commander Jessica Thorne, your mother. Raven's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. You knew. I suspected. The way you move, the way you think it's familiar. She'd be proud of what you're doing here. Taking the hard path. Building instead of breaking. She died before she could see me earn my trident. No, she saw it coming from the day you were born. Warriors recognize warriors even in infants. The revelation added new weight to everything. Raven wasn't just upholding SEAL standards. She was carrying a family legacy of breaking barriers the right way. Week 3 introduced team dynamics, not just working together, but truly depending on each other. Trust exercises that required absolute faith in your partner. In combat, Raven explained, your team is everything, not just your strength, but your survival. You've been acting like individuals. That ends now. She paired them with other Marines going through similar training, forced them to work with people they'd previously dismissed or ignored, including Lance Corporal Maria Rodriguez, the female Marine they'd driven away months earlier, now back with Ranger tabs and a look that could melt steel. Remember me? Rodriguez asked quietly when she entered the training bay. The 3 Marines froze. This was their past coming home. Still think women don't belong here? Raven asked after Rodriguez had successfully demonstrated a complex takedown series that left Wolf gasping on the mat. Wolf's face, red with exertion and shame, shook his head. No, ma'am, we were wrong. Completely wrong. Good, because courage doesn't have a gender. Neither does competence. Week 4 brought unexpected pressure. Harrison's influence was spreading rumors that the training was actually hazing, that Raven was abusing her authority for revenge. Some Marines started questioning whether the 3 deserved such harsh treatment, but Rodriguez stepped up in an unexpected way. I heard what you're going through, she told them after observing a training session. Part of me thinks you deserve worse for what you did to me and others. But I'm watching you now and I see something I didn't expect. What? Stanton asked. Actual change. Not surface compliance, but real transformation. That's more than most would even attempt. Her willingness to acknowledge their effort, despite what they'd done to her, hit harder than any punishment could have. You have a choice, she continued. Become the Marines who drove me out, or become the Marines I wished had been there to stop it. Choose wisely. By week 5, the morning runs that had nearly killed them were becoming manageable. The techniques that had seemed impossible were becoming instinctive. The mindset that had seemed foreign was becoming natural. But Raven wasn't getting softer. If anything, she was pushing harder. Competence at basics isn't excellence, she announced Monday morning. Now we advance. Advance meant complex scenarios, multiple attackers, weapons involved, psychological pressure that made physical stress seem simple. Your enemy won't fight fair, she explained, introducing scenario training that included sensory deprivation, sleep deprivation, information overload. They'll attack when you're weak, confused, exhausted. You need to be ready anyway. The scenarios were brutal. Ambushes in dark rooms, extractions under fire, decisions with no good options, and always the requirement to maintain discipline and ethics even under extreme pressure. It's easy to be good when things are easy, Raven said after Briggs had successfully navigated a hostage scenario without violating ROE. The test is being good when everything goes wrong. But perhaps the most profound change was happening in the evening sessions. Raven had instituted a ritual. After dinner, informal discussion. No rank, no structure, just conversation about service duty honor. Real conversation. Why did you join? She asked them one night. Wolf considered lying, then didn't. Wanted to prove I was tough. And now I want to prove I'm worthy. It was a small shift in words, but a fundamental shift in mindset. Stanton had been the most affected by the training. The youngest of the three, he joined the Marines to escape a difficult home life. The assault on Raven had been him trying to fit in, to belong to something. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," he admitted one evening. I wanted to be part of the group." "And you were willing to hurt someone for that?" Raven asked, not unkindly. "Yeah, I was, and I hate myself for it." "Good. Use that. Let it drive you to be better. Transform guilt into purpose." The transformation wasn't happening in isolation. The entire base was watching. Some skeptical, some supportive, all surprised. The three Marines who'd been the biggest problems were becoming examples of what proper training could accomplish. But not everyone was happy about it. The encrypted message came Thursday night of week 5. "Higher interest activated. Expect interference." Raven wasn't surprised. The protection network that had shielded Wolf and others was being threatened. Changes at the ground level meant exposure at higher levels. Friday morning, Lieutenant Commander Harrison arrived. Wolf's uncle. The family resemblance was obvious, but where Wolf was learning humility, Harrison wore arrogance like rank insignia. "Chief Thorne," he said, finding her after the morning PT session. "I understand you're training my nephew." "I'm training Marines, sir. Your nephew happens to be one of them." "I've heard the training is intensive. It's appropriate to their needs. Some might call it excessive, retaliatory even." Raven met his eyes steadily. "Some might be mistaken, sir." Harrison's smile was cold. "I'll be observing today's training." "Of course, sir. We have nothing to hide." The afternoon session was close quarters combat. Harrison watched from the observation deck as Raven put his nephew through techniques that looked brutal, but were actually carefully controlled. "You're hurting him," Harrison said during a break. "I'm teaching him, sir. There's a difference." "This looks like revenge for what happened." "What happened, sir?" Raven's voice was innocently curious. "Are you referring to the assault that was captured on security footage, the one that could result in federal charges?" Harrison's face darkened. "That was a misunderstanding." "No, sir. It was assault. Your nephew is lucky he's getting training instead of a trial. You think you're untouchable because you're a SEAL. No, sir. I think I'm right because I'm right." The standoff might have escalated, but Colonel Frost appeared. "Commander Harrison, unexpected visit. Just checking on training standards, Colonel." "Good, then you'll be pleased to know that since Chief Thorne began her program, incident reports are down 40%, readiness scores are up 20%, and we've had 12 requests from other bases to implement similar training." Harrison had no response to data. "Your nephew is performing well," Frost continued. "He might actually become the Marine he should have been from the start. Unless you'd prefer he return to his previous behavioral patterns." The threat was subtle but clear. The protection was over. Performance would be the only metric that mattered now. After Harrison left, Frost found Raven. "He'll cause problems. Let him try. Everything's documented. Every session recorded. Every improvement logged. He moves against this program, he exposes himself. You planned this from the beginning. I planned for every contingency. That's what we do." That evening, Wolf approached her after training. "My uncle visited. I noticed. He wanted me to file a complaint. Say you were abusing your authority. And I told him the truth, that you're the first instructor who actually gave a damn about making us better instead of just pushing us through." It was the first time she'd shown surprise. "Why? Because it's true. I was a terrible Marine, ma'am. Good at PT, good at shooting, but terrible at being what a Marine should be. You're changing that." "No, Corporal. You're changing that. I'm just providing the opportunity." The revelation hung between them. For the first time, Wolf truly understood. This wasn't about Raven proving anything. It was about them proving they were worth saving. Week 6 would bring the hardest test yet. Not physical, not tactical, but moral. They would face their victims, own their failures, and learn that redemption wasn't given. It was earned one difficult choice at a time. Week 6 began with an unexpected visitor. Not brass, not oversight, but someone far more significant to the three Marines who'd started this journey in violence. Lance Corporal Maria Rodriguez stood in the doorway of the training facility, 5 feet 4 inches of controlled fury. She'd been one of their previous victims, transferred out 6 months ago after Wolf's squad had made her life hell. Now she was back wearing jump wings and a Ranger tab they hadn't noticed she'd earned since leaving. "Remember me?" she asked quietly. Wolf's face drained of color. Briggs looked at the floor. Stanton actually stepped backward. "Lance Corporal Rodriguez is here at my invitation," Raven announced. "She's going to help with today's training." "Ma'am," Wolf started, "you harassed her for 3 months, made sexist comments, accidentally knocked her down during PT, made her feel so unsafe she requested transfer." Raven's voice was clinical, listing facts. "She didn't file charges because she didn't think anyone would listen. She was right." Rodriguez stepped forward. "I could have been great here. I had skills, motivation, dedication. But you made me feel like I didn't belong, like I was less than human because I was female." The silence was suffocating. "Today," Raven continued, "you're going to understand what you took from her. Rodriguez is going to run you through the same training she completed at Ranger School. The training she used to transform pain into power. What followed was 6 hours of hell. Rodriguez didn't hold back. Every exercise, every drill, every evolution was designed to push them past breaking. But more than physical challenge, it was psychological reckoning. She made them confront not just their actions, but their impact. "You know what the worst part was," Rodriguez said as Wolf struggled through his 50th burpee. "It wasn't the harassment. It was that everyone saw it happening and did nothing. You made me feel invisible in my own unit." "We're sorry," Briggs gasped between exercises. "I don't want your apology. I want you to change. Really change. Because there are more women coming into combat roles, and they deserve better than what you gave me." By noon, all three were destroyed, not just physically, but emotionally. The weight of their past actions, multiplied by understanding the strength of those they dismissed, was crushing. "Rodriguez could have filed charges," Raven said as they recovered. "She could have ended your careers. She chose to serve instead, to become better despite you. That's strength you don't even comprehend." "Why come back?" Stanton asked Rodriguez directly. "Why face us again?" "Because Chief Thorne asked me to. Said you were trying to change. I wanted to see if it was real." She paused. "Jury's still out." That afternoon brought a different kind of training. Colonel Frost had arranged for them to observe a joint operation exercise. Real SEALs and Forced Recon Marines working together on a complex hostage rescue scenario. "Watch," Raven instructed. "See how they move. No ego, no competition, just mission focus." The evolution was poetry in motion. Each operator covering another sector. Communication reduced to essential words and gestures. Trust so absolute that they moved through fatal funnels without hesitation, knowing their teammate had their back. "That's what we're building toward," Frost said afterward. "Not just individual warriors, but integrated teams. That requires absolute trust. Trust that's earned through character, not just capability." Wolf watched the debrief, saw how the SEALs and Marines critiqued each other without emotion, focused only on improvement. No one took criticism personally. Everyone owned their mistakes immediately. "We've been doing it all wrong," he said quietly. "Yes," Raven agreed, "but recognition is the first step to correction." That evening, she gathered them for what had become their regular discussion session. But this time she had them right. not speak right. Letters, she instructed, to everyone you've wronged, not for sending, but for acknowledging. Own every action, no excuses, no justifications, just truth. They wrote for hours, names they'd almost forgotten, incidents they'd dismissed as harmless, a catalog of small cruelties that had seemed like nothing at the time but accumulated into something monstrous. Read them, Raven ordered when they finished. Out loud, to each other, bear witness to who you were. It was excruciating, hearing their actions listed, accumulated, verbalized. The person described in those letters was someone they no longer recognized, or worse, someone they recognized too well. That's who you were, Raven said when they finished. The question is, who are you now? Week 7 brought unexpected news. The investigation Raven had triggered was bearing fruit. 3 senior officers were under review for covering up harassment complaints. The protection network was unraveling. Lieutenant Commander Harrison was reassigned pending investigation. His replacement commander, Angela Mitchell, arrived with a mandate to clean house. I've reviewed the past 5 years of incident reports, Mitchell announced at an all-hands meeting. What I found is unacceptable. A culture of protection for the connected at the expense of the capable. That ends now. She instituted new policies, anonymous reporting systems, mandatory intervention training, and most significantly, performance standards that couldn't be gamed through connections. Your uncle can't save you now, Blackwood told Wolf privately. Neither can Briggs's father or Stanton's family money. From here on, you sink or swim on merit alone. Good, Wolf replied, surprising them both. I'm tired of being protected. I want to earn it. The training intensified. Week 8 introduced maritime operations. Week 9, advanced marksmanship under stress. Week 10, survival evasion, resistance escape fundamentals. Each evolution harder than the last, but the 3 Marines were no longer the same people who'd started this journey. They were faster, stronger, more skilled, but more importantly, they were humble-focused and team-oriented. The transformation was so complete that visiting instructors often couldn't believe these were the same problem Marines from 2 months ago. What did you do to them? A Marine Corps martial arts instructor asked Raven after watching them demonstrate technical proficiency that exceeded some black belt requirements. I gave them a choice, excellence or exile. They chose excellence. But the real test came week 11 when Raven revealed something that changed everything. There's something you need to know, she announced Monday morning, about why I was really sent here. She pulled up a presentation on the screen. Names, dates, financial transactions, a web of corruption that went far beyond Camp Pendleton. You 3 weren't random. You were identified as test cases, sons and relatives of connected individuals who'd been protecting a culture of abuse across multiple bases. Your transformation or failure would determine whether the entire system could be reformed. We were guinea pigs, Wolf asked, anger rising. You were opportunities to prove that even the most protected, entitled Marines could become real warriors if the right pressure was applied. And if we'd failed, then the program would have been scrapped and the old system would have continued. More Rodriguez situations, more buried complaints, more good Marines driven out by bad ones. The weight of it settled on them. Their personal redemption had become institutional reform. So everyone's watching us, Briggs asked. Everyone. Pentagon level. Your success means programs like this roll out across the Corps. Your failure means status quo. No pressure, Stanton muttered. All the pressure, Raven corrected. Just like real operations. The stakes are always higher than just your own life. Week 12 began with a shock. During a routine training evolution, Stanton suffered what appeared to be a breakdown. He froze during a combat drill, then collapsed, shaking. I can't, he gasped. I keep seeing her face. When I kicked her. The blood. I can't. The medics wanted to pull him from the program. Automatic failure. But Raven intervened. "Give us 24 hours, she requested. That night she sat with Stanton alone in the empty training facility. "Talk," she ordered. What poured out was years of suppressed trauma. An abusive father who taught him violence was strength. Joining the Marines to escape only to perpetuate the same patterns. The kick to her face had broken something in him, a mirror showing him becoming his father. "I'm broken," he said finally. "Maybe I always was." "No," Raven said firmly. "You're breaking. There's a difference. Breaking means you can rebuild. Broken means you've given up." She told him something she'd never shared with anyone at Pendleton. "My second deployment, Afghanistan. I shot a teenager. He had a weapon, it was justified, but he was 14. Same age as my brother. I see his face every night." "How do you deal with it?" "By making sure every action I take honors the weight of that one. By being better every day than I was that day. By turning trauma into purpose." "I don't know if I'm strong enough." Strength isn't about not falling, Stanton. It's about getting up. Every single time. The next morning, Stanton was back on the mat. Shaky, uncertain, but present. And that presence, that choice to continue despite everything, was perhaps the greatest victory of all. The final evaluation was scheduled for Friday. Colonel Frost announced it would be comprehensive and public. "You'll undergo assessment, physical, mental, ethical. Pass and you graduate this program with recommendations for advanced training opportunities. Fail and you're processed out of the military entirely." "All or nothing?" Briggs asked. "Just like real operations. Success or catastrophic failure. No middle ground." They trained harder that week than they had the entire program. Not because Raven pushed them, but because they pushed themselves. The external motivation had become internal drive. The night before the final evaluation, Wolf couldn't sleep. He found Raven in the gym at War 200 working through a complex kata that looked like violent meditation. "Nervous?" she asked without stopping. "Terrified." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp. It's overconfidence that gets you killed." "Can I ask you something?" She stopped, faced him. "Go ahead." "That night in the corridor, when we attacked you, you could have destroyed us." "Yes." "Why didn't you?" She considered the question. "Because destruction is easy. Transformation is hard. Anyone can break someone. It takes real strength to build them back up better." "We didn't deserve that chance." "No, you didn't. But the Marines who might serve under you someday did. They deserved leaders who understood strength comes from service, not dominance." "Do you think we're ready?" "I think you're ready to find out." The final evaluation day arrived gray and cold-fitting for what would be either graduation or termination. The assessment team included Raven Blackwood, Colonel Frost Commander Mitchell Master Chief Stone, and 3 external evaluators from Marine Special Operations Command. Physical standards were first. The obstacle course from hell. Timed runs with full combat load. Swimming in gear. Stress shoots with induced fatigue. Every standard had to be exceeded, not just met. Wolf pushed through exhaustion that would have stopped him 12 weeks ago. Briggs found endurance he didn't know existed. Stanton discovered that mental strength could overcome physical limitations. They all passed, barely but legitimately. Tactical assessment came next. Complex scenarios requiring split-second decisions. ROE adherence under pressure. Team coordination without verbal communication. The scenario was a hostage rescue. Building clearance with unknown layout. Multiple threats. Civilians present. Time pressure. Everything that could go wrong would. They'd failed this same scenario week 1. Rushed in without planning. Violated ROE. Failed to discriminate between threats and non-threats. Now they moved with purpose. Communicated silently. Covered sectors. When a civilian appeared in a threat zone, they held fire, repositioned, neutralize the actual threat behind them. Perfect discipline under pressure. But the real test was ethical. The evaluators presented a scenario. You're on a mission. Your teammate commits a war crime, kills a prisoner. No one else sees it. He's your friend, saved your life multiple times. Do you report it? Without hesitation, all three answered. Yes. Even knowing it will end his career, maybe send him to prison. Especially then, Wolf answered. Because if I don't, I'm complicit. And everyone who serves after that moment serves under a lie. Raven and Stone exchanged glances. That answer, more than any physical feat, showed true transformation. The final component was unexpected. They had to teach. You have 1 hour, Frost announced, to prepare and deliver training to a group of junior Marines. Topic: ethical leadership in combat. Your students will evaluate whether they'd want to serve under you. It was brilliant, testing not just what they'd learned, but whether they could pass it on, whether they'd internalized it enough to teach it. Wolf took point on planning, not because he assumed leadership, but because the others nominated him. Briggs developed the practical exercises. Stanton created the discussion points. They taught with humility, shared their failures as warnings, demonstrated techniques while explaining the responsibility that came with them. And when asked why ethics mattered in warfare, Wolf gave an answer that would have been impossible 12 weeks earlier. Because we're not just warriors, we're American warriors. That means something. It means we hold ourselves to standards our enemies don't. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to win the right way. The junior Marines were impressed. More importantly, they were inspired. In their evaluations, every single one said they'd willingly serve under these instructors. The assessment board convened privately while the three waited outside. Longest hour of their lives. When Raven emerged, her face was unreadable. Follow me. They entered to find the entire board standing. Unprecedented, Colonel Frost spoke. Gentlemen, 12 weeks ago, you were facing court-martial and dishonorable discharge. Your actions were criminal, your attitudes toxic, your impact on unit cohesion negative. They stood at attention, waiting for the axe to fall. Today you've demonstrated not just improvement, but transformation. Physical scores exceeding special operations minimums, tactical proficiency at advanced levels, and most importantly, ethical grounding that suggests you understand what service actually means. Commander Mitchell continued. The board's decision was unanimous. You've passed. More than that, you've earned something rare, a complete second chance. Master Chief Stone stepped forward with 3 folders. Recommendations for follow-on training: Wolf Scout Sniper School, Briggs Explosive Ordnance Disposal School, Stanton Joint Terminal Attack Controller School. Specialized training that will make you force multipliers, if you want it. They were speechless. These weren't just second chances. These were elite opportunities. Additionally, Frost continued, Chief Thorne has recommended you for a new program, Joint Special Operations Integration Team. You train alongside SEALs Rangers, Special Forces, not as equals yet, but with the potential to become that. Sir, Wolf managed, we don't deserve. No, you don't, Raven interrupted. But you earned it. There's a difference. Deserving is about the past. Earning is about the present. You earned this through 12 weeks of choosing to be better every single day. Blackwood stepped forward. But understand something. This isn't forgiveness. It's opportunity. The people you wronged, they carry those scars. Rodriguez, others, they didn't get their time back. You owe them a debt you can never fully repay. So how do we try? Stanton asked. By being the leaders they deserve from the beginning, Raven answered. By ensuring no one under your command ever experiences what you put them through. By being the break in the cycle. The ceremony was small private, no fanfare. Just the presentation of completion certificates and new orders. But for 3 Marines who'd started as predators, it was everything. Ma'am, Wolf said to Raven afterward. I need to say something. Go ahead. That night when Stanton kicked you, when your tooth broke, I laughed about it later, bragged about it. I was proud of hurting you. I know. I will carry that shame for the rest of my life. But I promise you, I will never again be the kind of man who could do that. You didn't just train us. You saved us from becoming monsters. No, Corporal, you saved yourselves. I just showed you the door. 2 days later, as Raven prepared to leave Pendleton, Commander Angela Mitchell arrived with a security detail and a sealed folder. Chief Thorne, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. She opened the folder revealing surveillance photos, financial records, and intelligence reports spanning years. Your mission here was never just about these 3 Marines. We've been tracking a corruption network that goes all the way to Pentagon procurement. These 3 were sons of key players. Their transformation was phase 1. Phase 1 of what? Operation Clean Sweep. Using their redemption as leverage to get their fathers and uncles to cooperate with a larger investigation. Harrison has already turned state's evidence. Briggs's father is cooperating. Stanton's family is providing financial records. You use them as bait. We use them as proof that change is possible. Their transformation gave their families a choice: cooperate and reform, or watch their sons' careers end in disgrace. They all chose cooperation. They don't know, they'll never know. As far as they're concerned, they earned their redemption through their own effort, which they did. But their success has implications beyond themselves. Raven absorbed this. How many bases? 17. How many careers will end dozens? How many future Marines will serve in a better corps thousands? And my role is finished here, but not finished overall. There are other bases, other problems. We need someone who can identify, infiltrate, and reform. More ghosts to play, more warriors to save. Raven nodded. The mission continued. 6 months later, Corporal Decker Wolf graduated Scout Sniper School with honors. During his graduation speech, he talked about a chief petty officer who taught him that silence wasn't weakness, but patience. That restraint wasn't submission, but strength. Lance Corporal Briggs became one of the Navy's most requested EOD instructors, known for emphasizing safety and ethics as much as technical skill. Private First Class Stanton, promoted for exceptional performance, became the youngest JTAC instructor in Marine history, famous for telling his students, "Power without discipline isn't strength. It's just violence waiting to happen." In Chief Petty Officer Raven Thorne. She returned to SEAL Team 3, where her after-action report became required reading at the Naval Special Warfare Center. Not the tactical parts, but her conclusion. The greatest victories aren't won through violence, but through transformation. The hardest battles aren't against enemies, but against our worst natures. And the truest strength is shown not in destroying those who wrong us, but in having the power to destroy them, in choosing to rebuild them instead. 5 years later, the Arctic wind cut through their gear as 3 figures observed a joint special operations exercise in Norway. Colonel Decker Wolf, Major Thomas Briggs, and Captain Kyle Stanton stood watching American SEALs and Marine Raiders execute a flawless integration drill. "Textbook execution," Wolf commented, making notes for his after-action report. "Better than textbook," Briggs corrected. "That's excellence." A familiar voice spoke behind them. "Gentlemen." They turned to find Captain Raven Thorne, recently promoted, the Navy Cross, gleaming beside her SEAL trident. "Ma'am," Wolf said, rendering a salute that 5 years ago would have been grudging, but now carried genuine respect. "Heard you 3 have been making waves. Wolf's team in Syria, Briggs's EOD units saving that village in Somalia, Stanton coordinating the impossible extraction in Venezuela." "We had a good teacher," Stanton replied. "No," Raven corrected that same steady tone from years ago. "You had a mirror. I just made you look into it." 5 years had brought changes. Mitchell, now admiral after exposing the corruption network, had fast-tracked several promotions for those instrumental in Operation Clean Sweep. She handed them a folder. New mission if you're interested. Joint Task Force. Classified, dangerous. Requires operators who understand that strength isn't about dominance. When? Wolf asked without hesitation. 6 weeks. Prep starts Monday. As she walked away, Briggs asked quietly, "Think she knew from the beginning that we could become this?" Wolf touched his jaw, remembering a night 5 years ago that had started everything. "I think she knew we had two choices, become this or become nothing. She just made sure we couldn't choose nothing." "Ma'am," Stanton called after her. She turned. "That tooth, you never got it fully fixed." She smiled, the same rare expression from years ago. "Some reminders are worth keeping. Besides, every time I feel it, I remember that the hardest battles aren't against enemies. They're against our worst natures. And that the greatest victory isn't destroying those who wrong us. It's rebuilding them into something better." Wolf finished. "Hooyah, Marine! Hooyah, Commander!" The Arctic wind continued to blow, but for 3 Marines who'd been forged in the crucible of their own failures, it felt warm compared to the cold they'd once carried in their hearts. The silent warrior had completed her mission, not through violence but through transformation, not through breaking but through building. And the Corps was stronger for it. In the official Naval Special Warfare Archives, there's a classified after-action report. It details an operation that involved no weapons, no explosives, no enemy combatants. Just one woman who understood that sometimes the most important battles are fought in training bays and classrooms against the enemies we carry within ourselves. The operation was deemed a complete success. Codenamed Silent Storm. Operator Chief Petty Officer Raven Thorn. Result: 3 monsters became Marines. A corrupt system was exposed. A Corps was reformed. Method, patience, discipline, and the radical belief that even the worst among us can become the best if given the chance and shown the way. The report concludes with a single line that would become legend in special operations circles. "Excellence is not inherited. It is earned through facing one's failures and choosing to rise above them. The greatest warriors are those who forge others through their own transformation." The silent warrior had spoken her truth, not through words, but through actions. And that truth would echo through the military for generations to come. Because strength without honor is just violence. Power without discipline is just chaos. And silence properly employed can be the loudest statement of all.